I'm the Sad Panda, and this is not going to be the next episode in my series, I Read This, Should You? Actually, this is just going to be me doing a touch-up recap on Chrysalis, because I've been reading it a lot recently. I usually wait for a few chapters to read it in like bulk, so I actually get like an experience while I read it, because if you read it chapter to chapter, a lot of times it's great, but you get a lot of breaks, and then it's like breaks in between dialogue or breaks in between fights, and it's whatever. Like, I do the same thing with One Piece. Usually I leave it like 2 chapters, but you know, that's here and far between, whatever. The reason why I want to talk about it, right? And if you haven't read Chrysalis, I recommend you go and watch my last video on Chrysalis. Well, not my last video on Chrysalis, but my review on Chrysalis, and it will give you an idea of what it's about. But for those of you that have read Chrysalis, I want to know if you're excited or not, because from what we've seen, right, Anthony has been fighting creatures from the 3rd and 4th strata, right? And the creatures from the 4th strata have like this replicating acid mana, essentially, which you can't like just break down or wash off. You have to use your own mana to rip it apart, like molecularly at the, like, essentially at the base level. So it's like very difficult. We've seen Anthony fight off this like demon toad, right? That's just what I'm gonna call it, is a demon toad. But why? Okay, so my question is why we're seeing 4th strata monsters now. I mean, I understand that the mana levels can support higher tiered and lower strata monsters, right? And I know that. But my question is, why aren't we seeing more like demons, right? Because we've seen the demon strata just a tiny bit. We fought one demon from what we've seen and what we've been able to read, and we know a lot about what's going on in the demon strata. We know that a gluttony demon controls like the pillar that the world sits on, right? He has like a base around it, and he like has like priests or whatever bring him like specific food or whatever because he's a gluttony demon or whatever. But he is a high tiered monster, and this monster knows about Anthony, knows about the colony, and we haven't seen anything with that yet. And I know it's only been a few chapters, but it's something that I'm like genuinely looking forward to. I want to know how the colony deals with demons, right? And like how they deal with higher tiered, higher strata or lower strata monsters, right? Like, sure, we've seen 4th strata monsters, and we know that they are very powerful, and we know that even Anthony, which is the highest tiered ant in the entire colony, struggles with that specific mana and that specific creature. So we, as a community, like haven't really seen what the demons can do. I mean, sure, we've seen what that one demon can do, right? Because like the multiple tongues, and they're fast as like lightning, and they're very strong, but we haven't seen really anything special about them besides like they have a high affinity for like fire mana, which is what like the entire 3rd strata is. I'm just excited, and I want to see all this stuff, and I'm really excited that Tiny and Chrysalis is leveling up finally, or evolutioning. They're evolving. And that means that NVIDIA can finally start getting XP, which, if you don't know, NVIDIA, Chrysalis, Tiny are all pets of Anthony. So, I mean, if you're watching this, you probably know. I mean, I would assume you know, but if you don't, then there you go. And we finally get to see what Tiny's like with intellect, right? Because Tiny's been with Anthony since like really early in the story, like really, really early, when he was just like a lightning chimp or whatever he was called. And now he's like this huge King Kong-esque gorilla that can shoot lightning bolts from his fist, right? But he's really low intelligence, right? Because every time he evolves, he takes points away from his intelligence and puts it into strength, even though he has a ton of evolution, like, what's it called? Evolutionary matter or whatever, to evolve his muscles alone. So we hear from one of the evolution like guides, I don't remember what his name is, Garen. He talks about how these like lightning apes, they never get to the tier that Tiny is, because usually they just die, right? They evolve and they get dumb, and then they just die, because obviously they have no intellect, but they have a lot of fighting prowess, but that doesn't mean anything if you can't strategize at all, so they end up dying. And so to see one at this rank, which is tier I think tier 6 going to tier 7. I'm not sure, or tier 5 going to tier 6. I'm not necessarily sure. I forget what tier they're all at, but I do know that they're tiering up, and this is, hold on, I'm going to check. Tier 5 going to tier 6. So he can finally be caught up with Anthony, and Kratos is also going to tier 6, so she'll also be matching Anthony, and that means NVIDIA can finally start getting XP because he was cut off from getting XP for a while because they all have to catch up, right? And that means Anthony can start striving for that tier 7, which is a long ways away, obviously. I mean, I don't expect them to get tier 7 in this wave. But, you know, depending on how big this wave is, if it's like calamity level waves, maybe, you know, because from what we see, right, and I talked about this on the last time we talked about Chrysalis. I talked about the waves, right, and the mana levels increasing the higher you go, and which means higher tiered monsters that can't sustain their cores can go higher, right? And we've seen 2 waves already in the story. And from what we know, what the humans say, and from what we have been able to experience, waves are rare. And not only are they rare, these ones are bigger than they've like almost ever been, besides during the cataclysm, cataclysmic event called the Rending, you know? So what we know is that mana levels are increasing again, and they're getting higher and higher and higher. And to what point, we don't know, right? But this could also mean that waves are going to become more frequent, and the rending is going to happen again, which is something that is very possible, right? Because what we know is that these ancient monsters need another to their, like, to make it like a set, right? They need another ancient, and ancients are usually reincarnators that have evolved to the point of, like, what's it called? That have evolved to the point of being able to become an ancient, right? And then we don't know what tier that is. It could be like tier 10 monsters, tier 11 monsters, tier 12 monsters. We don't know. Another thing that we don't know is we don't know much about the mother tree. I don't remember exactly what she's called, but she's a creature that gave birth to like a sentient race, right? And they want to become allies with the colony because they can see that the colony is growing in power very quickly, and they want to be be a part of that, right? But this mother, right, we don't know what tier she is. Anthony has hypothesized that she's a tier 9, tier 10 even, which means if she's tier 10 and she's not considered an ancient, then we don't know where the ancients could be and what level they could be. If the ancients are like tier 15, tier 20, could you imagine the amount of levels, the amount of power Anthony would have to bring together just to become a tier 20 creature? And then at that point, what is the dungeon like? Because at this point, ants in the first strata are unbeatable. You cannot beat them in the first strata because there's so many of them. There's so many like nests. There's so many satellite nests. There's so many queens. At this point, in the way that they raise the ants, which they bring them up to tier 3, I think, right from the gate. So they have teachers, and they have all this stuff to teach each other. And at this point, in the first strata, and even mostly in the second strata, ants are unbeatable. You can't beat them unless you have like powerhouses such as, you know, the military, you know, I forget what they're called, but like the Centurions and all those people down there, like the one that cut Anthony nearly in half. I forget his name, but, you know, he's prevalent, but I'm really bad with names. I remember what he looks like, and I remember, like, the feats that he's done, but I don't remember his name, which is, you know, this is something I've always been bad at. But what we know is that ants are like a menace to humans, and I'm also interested to see how they start dealing, the Legion, when they start dealing with Anthony and his colony, because at this point they're extending the training program. So instead of training up like newborn ants to rank 3, they're going to rank 4 now. And there was a whole like conversation I remember about, they're like, oh, we won't have enough biomass and we won't have enough cores. But as we know, right, it's pretty much raining cores right now in the story. I mean, if you read web novel, it's only $2.59, and I'm pretty sure he has a Patreon, which is a little further ahead, a few chapters ahead. So I don't know what's going to happen, right? And people that have read on the Patreon, they know what's coming up next. But I don't. I'm just, you know, your free reader that just loves loves the story. No, but anyway, I'm just excited about this story, and I'm really glad that it's continuing, and it's been very steady, and I'm very happy for that the author is doing this, right? Rhino Z, I appreciate the author. He's fantastic. And of course, if you haven't read the story, read it. And if you were watching this and you haven't read the story, you just got spoiled. You got spoiled hard. And that's not on me. That's on you. Because I said what this was at the beginning. This is a recap, okay? This is like a chapter review. This is not like spoiler free synopsis, right? No, this is a lot of stuff. And now that Anthony and Chrysalis and Tiny are evolving, my question is, do we finally see them go into the third strata, right? Now, so we've seen them in the third strata a tiny bit. They went to like the edge of the third strata. They fought that demon, and then they came back because it was really strong. And they're like, well, we don't know. You know, maybe we go down there, maybe we don't. But maybe after Chrysalis and Tiny evolve, we can finally do that. And that would be exciting for me, because I'm just really interested to see this new location, because that's how I've always been with this like strata stuff. Like I've always been really excited to see like the second strata when we were in the first strata, like the shadow strata, all the different beasts, all the different evolutions, the different societies that are there. Because from what we can tell, every strata has its own like societies and stuff. Like there was the cult of like the ancients, or the cult of the worm or whatever, which was a cult for the the world eater worm that broke the surface during the rending, right? They know that the ancients are looking for another ancient, so they're trying to train up creatures with cores to become an ancient, which is like they took an Anthony at one point. That's where he met Gurren, and all this stuff. But I'm just excited. I don't know if you could tell I'm excited. You know, all these things have been going great, and the story has just continued to be good. I don't change my ranking on it at all. I think it's great, and I love the side stories, like when Anthony finally went to the surface again, and we didn't get to see a whole lot from Bren, which is unfortunate, because I really like that character, the crazy priest. I think he's fun, but we didn't see a whole lot from him. But we do see that the humans on the surface that have built their homes around the anthill, that they now worship as like a monument to ants, and to Anthony specifically, because he's the eldest of the ant colony, right? Even technically, he's technically older than the queen, which is weird, but it is what it is. Like species wise, he's younger in like absolute age, like how long he's been alive, but as the species Formica sapiens, he is older than the queen. He was a Formica sapien before the queen, and then he made the queen a Formica sapien, which in turn changed all of the other ants, which is why he gets the title the eldest. In case people have forgotten that or whatever, I don't know. I like to explain stuff because it makes it easier for me to remember. So like how they built like a society around these ants, like young ants, like tier 3, tier 4 ants will go up to the surface all the time. They'll help them out. They like sorted like taxes and stuff, even though the tax rate is extremely high. But you know, ants don't have like that selfish gene that humans have, where it's like, oh, I can just skim a little off the top and I'm rich and you're not. No, it's like ants are like, all right, we're going to take the taxes and we're going to put it directly back into the city. We're going to put it directly back into the people, like into the roads, into the schools, into all this stuff, instead of like, you know, dilly-dallying around it. Ants don't have that like greed. They're just like, we are here to help the collective. So the person and the collective is always more important, which is, it makes sense, because if you think of ants and how ants like live in a colony, they're all about working hard for the collective, right? Like certain ants will go out and get food for everyone else, like that kind of thing. And so like the priest and stuff, they actually have like an ant like church now. They're ant-mancers, which are like priests, but that have ant like jobs, and they can use pheromones, and they have like a lot of like ant like properties now, which we don't know exactly how far this goes, yet, because we've only seen a little bit of it, but I'm excited about that as well. I like that the humans, they care so much about the ants that even though right now, the way the wave is, they are so weak compared to the tier 3 ants that it doesn't matter. But these people are still trying to go into the dungeon, into the ants like colony, to help and to do their best that they can to help, because they care so much about the ant colony. And of course, you have people that don't care and that think that, oh, we can't let ourselves be subject to like these monsters, these creatures. And of course, by this point, even the guards, right, they see that the ants help. They've never hurt anybody, right, except for Bran, but that was literally the first interaction that Anthony had with a human after he became an ant, so you can't really blame him, right? Especially since he was freaking out and trying to stab him. So I mean, what do you expect? But even the guards at this point are like, if you don't like the way we run this city, you don't need to be here. If you don't like the taxes, you can be gone. We have the manpower, we have the people that do care and do want to do this stuff. And it's like, I really like that, because like you would think that, you know, all these guards and stuff, they're used to dealing with monsters. Well, not used to, but they know that monsters are evil and all this stuff. But at this point, after the first wave, after the dungeon broke and these ants saved their lives, they feel not only indebted, but they feel like respectful towards these creatures, because they don't really ask for help or anything. They ask questions. Obviously, ants are very in one of the side stories, ants are very they ask a lot of questions because they want to be more knowledgeable, right? So like, you could be stuck talking to a single ant for a couple hours about something that they don't understand, and they don't get the intricacies of like human stuff. So when they talked about taxes the first time, it was like a huge argument for like days, I think, because the ants are like, oh, just take all of the money that you earn and then we put it back into the city. And obviously people are like, no, we need money to like live and commerce and stuff, because ants, they don't need that. If they had to take money from anything, they would be like, all right, we'll go straight back into the colony. And you know, but they had to understand that, like, oh yeah, we need money to live, we need money for status, we need money for all this stuff. And they're like, okay, so I think the tax rate is like 60-70%, which is a lot, but as I've said before, they're ants, so it just goes right back into the city. So it's not like you're getting ripped off, right? So the money that you take out is being put directly in. It's not like a percentage is being kept for the state in case of an emergency. No, it's like bam, bam, like easy. It just makes this story so much more interesting for me. I love the side characters. Almost all of them are great. I just think the story is worth reading. And if you're watching this and you haven't read it, go read it. I mean, obviously it spoiled you a little bit, but you're not going to understand most of the stuff that I'm talking about anyway, right? But if you have read it, please let me know in the comments what you think about the newest chapters, the demon frog, or not demon, but the fourth strata toad, right? Also, I want to know what you're anticipating happening with like the demon strata and stuff. I do feel that we're finally getting to the point where Anthony can start spreading the colony into the third strata, and after that case, I don't know what could possibly be happening next, right? There's so much going on, and the story is well written to the point where I can't really guess what's going on. I mean, I can make hypothesis, right? I can assume that Anthony will eventually meet this mother tree. I can assume that they will make an alliance at some point. I can assume that Anthony will fight the greed demon at one point because he's a creature that we've been introduced to. But I don't know. But I'm excited. So thank you, Rhino Z, and thank you for watching, and thank you for your comments. Obviously, if you comment, I respond to them. Anyone who's watched my content knows that, so thank you very much. Also, leave a like, and, you know, if you don't like it, leave a dislike, you know, leave a comment. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I want to do better. But this is a more of a recap review on like some of the newer chapters in Chrysalis. If you didn't know, now you know. Have a great day.